In the challenge of lesson 11, we stored the entire block of JSX code into a to-do variable and rendered this variable using React. This way, however, is not recommended in daily development. So in this lesson, let's try rewriting it using the component approach we learned in the last lesson. First, let's create an app component to contain all the content of our page. app.jsx. Inside it, const app, then an arrow function, return. Write some content for now, like this is app. Then export default app. Then in main.jsx, we need to import it and render the app component. Open it with the development server. npm run dev. It displays properly. So what should we write inside app? As we said in development, we won't put all the code into app. For example, moving all the code from to-do directly into app is not what we want. Instead, we prefer app to organize all the components. Let's analyze it. Since this outer part is a whole, so we can create component and call it to-do. Const to-do equals arrow function, then write a return, and cut all the code from to-do variable into it. Delete the original to-do variable. Then export default to-do. Do you feel it tedious to define a component every time like this? Every time you define a component, you have to write a lot of repetitive code. Actually, only the component name is different. Everything else is the same, right? So here I recommend an extension called ES7-React Snippets. So search for ES7 in the extension marketplace, and it will appear as the first result. What does this do? It provides a collection of code snippets for common patterns, boilerplate used in React. You can click the snippets link at the bottom to view all its commands. Let's try it. For example, the first one, if we want to import React into our component, we just type imr and press enter or tab, and it will automatically complete the entire line of code for us. For another example, if we scroll down, there is a section that records all templates related to React components. For instance, one I use frequently is RAFCE, which automatically imports a component template using an arrow function, including the export statement. If you don't use arrow functions, you can use RFCE. Just remove the letter A stands for arrow. You can refer to the page and choose according to your needs. Alright, back to our code. I'll delete it and rewrite it using snippets. RAFCE, press enter, and it's done. Very convenient. After exporting to-do, we can import it into app we just defined. Then we continue writing. What's inside the to-do? Are there many to-do items? Each item records a to-do content, right? We can fold the code for better observation. So I can continue splitting it into individual to-do item components. Create a new to-do item.jsx. Inside it, once again, RIFCE. Copy the code, which is the repetitive code. Import to-do item into to-do component, and replace this part of the original code. This way, whenever I need to record a to-do, I just write a to-do item component name. If I have multiple to-dos, I just write multiple to-do item component names. For example, I have 4 records here, so I write 4 to-do item component names. Check the result. Great. But there's a problem. Do you notice that when we write like this, all the records are identical? How can we make them record different content? Their structure, style, and interactions can be the same, but the specific content they record should be different. How to handle this? Don't worry, we will cover this in the next few lessons. For this video, just focus on learning how to split components. Alright, now we have created 3 components. App imported into main, to-do imported into app, and the to-do item imported into to-do. If we keep writing this way, it will lead to a problem. As our project becomes more complex, if we write all components directly into the src directory, this directory will become messy, with entry file, index.css file, and various components. So in daily development, we usually create a separate directory here to store all components except for app. This directory is generally named components. So let's move all components there. This makes our structure clearer. Within components, we can further organize. For example, currently, these are all to-do list related components. So we can put them all together because in future projects, there may be other types of components for other functionalities, right? Note that after moving files, if your code editor doesn't automatically update the path, you'll need to update them manually. But here, VS Code already did it for us automatically. Let's see if we can split further. In the to-do item, the left side is the date, and the right side is the content. Should we split it further? Whether to split depends on 2 factors. First, is its functionality complex? If it's simple, then no need to split. Second, will this part of the code be reused? If it might be reused, extract it into a new component. At this point, the code is already very simple, so we generally don't split further. But since this is an exercise, I'll continue splitting it for practicing. I'll make the date into a separate component so it can be used elsewhere. The right side, the content, will not be split further. Create a new to-do date.jsx and move the date code there. Replace the original part with to-do date. Now we've split the entire JSX code into individual components. Next, let's split the CSS. Although the code in this exercise is minimal and doesn't require splitting the CSS, in real-world development, the CSS code is much larger, making splitting necessary. Otherwise, putting everything in one file would make later maintenance extremely difficult. Splitting CSS is similar to splitting JSX. Create separate CSS files for each component and move the relevant CSS code there. Let's just do it together. Create a new to-do.css. Check what styles are used in the to-do component. There's a container class, so move the container style there. Next is to-do item, which has item, content, title, and desk. Finally, to-do date, which has date, day, and month. The remaining styles, which are external styles for the to-do list, just keep them in index.css. After creating these CSS files, import them to the relative JSX files. At this point, we've rewritten the exercise from Lesson 11 into a component-based approach. It may seem complicated now, as a single file has been split into many files, and one imports another. But as the project grows in complexity, you'll appreciate the advantages of this approach. Alright, remember to practice more after class. Make your hands busy. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next lesson.